Okay, there are two types of customers. One is a customer that has learned about HubSpot being AI native now, and they want to implement AI agents, but they don't know where to start, right? And then there are, of course, those customers that know that they can really work on HubSpot's AI agents. They really know, okay, this will drive revenue, but tell us how to do it, right? You are the system integrators, right? You are the AI experts, you are the workflow experts, you are the developers for us.
A lot of partners talk broadly about AI. Ankit Malhotra, Head of Channel Partnerships and Associate Director of Growth, gets into the building blocks of how they're operating at OneMetric and delivering value for customers. Today, OneMetric is an elite partner solving for enterprises, and this episode might be one of my favorites. This is one for the builders, the operators, and the leaders who are at the bleeding edge of what AI can do. Not afraid to fail, not afraid to focus obsessively on the one thing that customers want. Ankit, welcome to Owning the Outcome. Really great to have you here. And before we start, I would love to hear more about your story and what brought you to OneMetric.
What really brought me to Grow Automation / OneMetric was their vision of helping build the biggest and the best HubSpot partner agency in the world. Right before joining, I'd already spent like 3 years in the HubSpot ecosystem, so I knew, majorly everything about and around HubSpot. But when I came here, I saw a bunch of HubSpot wizards who were deeply technical, they were highly experimental, they were solution oriented, and basically they were willing to push beyond HubSpot's standard implementation capabilities, right? They were like, hey, if this cannot be done on HubSpot with its existing features, how do we find a workaround? That's what really brought me in. And the culture about never saying HubSpot cannot do this, but how do we architect this really creatively and make it work?
Tell me a little bit more about what's your role now and a little bit more about like the company itself. What's the size, what's the scope, and what's your customer focus?
We are a roughly 160 member team. We are system integrators, we are RevOps architects, we are AI workflow builders, we are revenue enablement partners. What has shaped us is not just being HubSpot experts, right? Of course, that comes as a part and parcel of what we do, but really about how do systems and tools that companies work with talk to each other and talk to HubSpot at the center of the things. My role really sits is an intersection of partnerships and sales. Now, I drive a revenue vertical here as an assistant director of growth, but that revenue vertical is driven by helping HubSpotters really close more revenue.
I just want to zoom in on something you said, that we have an ecosystem, they're trying to figure out, where AI fits. And often that can be in workflows. And you said there that you're workflow builders. Yes. Tell me about that. What does that mean in practicality?
Definitely. So, see, today HubSpot has a lot of agents, right? HubSpot has also built an ecosystem within, the HubSpot CRM, wherein we can go in and build agents, custom agents by ourselves. What we really do is to find out which are the best agents, build agents, right? How to actually architect so that these agents talk to each other, right? Because one agent can't do everything, right? For example, even if you take the prospecting agent, right? You need an agent that can do its own research, its own fact checking, its own, say, signals, right? Finding out intent signals, right? And how do these agents really talk to each other and generate the kind of results that people are looking for? And how does it actually make their processes, existing teams, existing systems more efficient and more scalable, right? So we build those workflows, right? And we connect. In fact, what we are today doing is not just building connectors with different agents. We're also building connectors with external AI agents. We have built an agent which can research with its connectors on Claude and LinkedIn, right? Because of course LinkedIn has the most amount of verified data, right? First-hand data and up-to-date data. fact checking about companies on Claude, for example, and then bringing it back onto HubSpot, right? So that you can do prospecting within HubSpot and then generate net new leads, something that can also learn from Claude, right? So it's basically an interconnected system where it's
Mhm.
not just HubSpot, but it really gives you the result, and HubSpot becomes that data center, right, which stores everything, which learns from it, and which actually can show you, okay, these are the results that we got out of this entire ecosystem.
And you said that really like HubSpot is the spine, and then there's you're building something around it that operates for customers in what they're looking for. I think you said earlier like what customers are looking for. Tell me what the customers you're talking to are looking for.
There are two types of customers. One is a customer that has learned about HubSpot being AI native now, and they want to implement AI agents, but they don't know where to start, right? And then there are, of course, those customers that know that they can really work on HubSpot's AI agents. They really know, okay, this will drive revenue, but tell us how to do it. You are the system integrators, right? You are the AI experts, you are the workflow experts, you are the developers for us. Tell us how we can actually reach there, right? Rather than, okay, tell us what HubSpot's AI agents can do. Now, the first kind of customers, we really need to educate them on how systems need to first be optimized and improvised and improved within their existing ecosystem, and then brought into HubSpot, and then execution. I mean, then we need to do the execution within HubSpot. The issue with that is that though it starts as an AI conversation, it becomes a process and a data conversation really quickly, right?
Yeah.
Because they need to understand that, hey, our data needs to be proper. What AI can really do is it can improve processes, but it cannot build strategies for you. That is something that you need to do yourself,
Yeah.
even with 100% context given it to it. It would really require you to strategize, and that is what it should be. But then those customers, right, where they know what they want, right, they have done their own research, they're using AI extensively within HubSpot, within their own companies, but they want now that, hey, we are already using HubSpot, why not operationalize that within HubSpot? That
Yeah.
is where the magic really happens, right? And that is where we come in and tell them how to actually scale their existing systems and make it more efficient.
You said there's two types of customers, and you kind of called out a customer that knows about the agents but doesn't really know where to start. But then you also talked about this kind of AI savvy customer. Can you kind of build a picture for me of who those people are? Like when you come into contact with those types of people, what roles do they have within the organization? Like what's their profile?
So we are now talking to sales leaders, marketing leaders, the operations CXOs, right? That are really driving revenue and are responsible for revenue, right? Or responsible
Hmm.
for moving things within their system. These kind of personas, they have used AI, right? They are completely aware that, hey, today we are moving from individuals using AI to an entire team using really governed AI ecosystem. They know that what kind of things they can really do on answer engine. They know what kind of agents they can build, and they really know, okay, this is how my governance layer, or this is how my intelligence layer is going to come in, work on my existing data, work on my existing workflows, and work on my existing reports that I've generated.
Do they belong to a particular industry? I mean, just as a matter of interest, is there a particular industry that is leaning that way more strongly?
Not really a particular industry, although we have seen manufacturing industry really come in strong over there because it operationalizes a lot of things, right? Content creation, then you have, say, code generation, right? And getting the real signals out of HubSpot and out of their data, and actually driving revenue, right? They can see revenue coming in really quickly, right? When these recurring revenue jumps or it shoots up, they can actually see that AI did that.
So when you say they're seeing results fast, right,
Yeah.
which is really helping on this. What are you doing during the sales process? What are you telling them you're going to achieve, and how fast are you telling them to expect to see outcomes as a result of what you implement? Are we talking kind of weeks or days or months, or talk me through that.
Definitely. So, see, what we are really doing, and we have shifted our narrative a little from actually building your AI agent within HubSpot to building a team within HubSpot. So, for
Mm.
example, there was this customer that we were working with. We built an entire agentic prospecting team within HubSpot, right? A team that can identify best fit prospects. Once it does that, it pulls in intent signals, conducts company research, right, or account research, right? Based on that, it hyper personalizes outbound emails and then learns from these historical campaigns, right, and campaign performances, and then orchestrate an outreach autonomously. Now, this is a multi-touch layer, and as I said, right, this includes talking to Claude, talking to Clay, right, talking to a content agent outside of HubSpot, and then of course HubSpot being at the center of things, right, where we are building custom objects within HubSpot, right, to store all
Hmm.
that data, right, to custom properties, to then learn from that. This is what we are actually telling teams that we do, and this is, I think, this is the future of AI led selling. When you say how much time it's going to take or what it's actually going to get them is, of course, it's all dependent on a lot of factors, but what we can definitely tell them is once your data is proper, right, once all of these systems are connected and workflows built between them, it does not take a lot of time for a manufacturing company to start seeing results, right? For example, only last month we did 23 qualified meetings, right, coming out of this entire agent, right, this entire
Mm.
ecosystem that we built. Fastest we've done is really 45 to 60 days, right, where we actually orchestrated an entire prospecting team, right, wherein it was doing uh, the outreach. Any new campaign outreach started 90% faster, right? For example, right, this is something that we were doing for one of our customers called NIIT, right? It's one of the biggest IT institutes in India. It's called National Institute of Information Technology. We built this multi-layer ecosystem, or multi-agent ecosystem and workflow. Now, any new campaign that they want to run, within a week, that campaign is running, right? And that campaign is not a small campaign, right? It requires you to build a new ICP, right? Build a new
Yeah.
list, build a new outreach motion, and then it does it autonomously with zero hallucination. Right now, this customer of ours, it was reaching out to Fortune 500 companies. So that has brought in a 30% increase in the number of qualified leads.
Okay.
That has actually freed up SDRs to now upskill themselves and become A's.
So they fall under that bucket of customer that it kind of is AI savvy, right? They were on board with it.
Yeah.
For the customers that are a bit more hesitant and you have to
Yeah.
do a bit more work with them, what's your pitch to them? What do you say to those customers to get them to at least come on the journey with you?
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, of course, we faced a lot of blockers earlier because of because of that layer of education that we needed to provide to them, that hey, this is something that you can do on HubSpot. Now we go in with what is your exact problem statement. Right now, the kind of audits or the kind of discovery that we are doing has now shifted from, hey, what exactly do you want to do, versus walk us through your entire process, right?
Mm, yeah.
And then we pick up each process, we ask them, hey, these are the six different stages in getting revenue for your team. Which are you which stage are you seeing the most amount of blockers, or where do you see the most amount of lead leakage, right? Where
Mhm.
leads drop off, where you're seeing revenue not moving forward. Let's first start with that, right? Let's operationalize that. Once you actually see a handoff from your from, say, it's the third stage, right, where they are doing qualification, right?
Yeah.
Let's first fix that, right? So that, okay, when once you've identified a lead, you are let me qualify that through building an intelligence layer between HubSpot, between Claude, building a custom agent, and an external agent, say Clay, right, to find out if there is an ICP match, and they're actually looking for your service, and then hand it over to the next team, right, to the sales team, right. Let's first operationalize that. If that is done, you would see that it is being done autonomously, it is being done automatically, and you're not employing a lot of time, bandwidth, resources over there. Once that is done, we'll now operationalize your entire system, right.
So it sounds like you're focusing on one metric. See what I did there? See what I did there? And recently, actually, because this really leads on to what I'd love to talk about is you recently rebranded as
Yes.
One Metric,
Yes.
and I like that shift because obviously you're exactly as you're saying. You're really getting focused, customers focused on that one thing.
Yeah.
I think it would be interesting to hear more about the why behind the name. Could you share with the listeners why you decided to do that? Because I think it's simplistic, but it's so it hits it right on the head. So talk to me about that.
Great question, right now, and I can speak for hours on this, but I'll just condense my answer and tell you in a few lines. Right now, what customers are really looking for are clarity, efficiency, and scale. That's all they're really looking for, right? Clarity into what is really moving the pipeline, right? What is not working, what should work, and how does my existing data actually translate into an actionable action point for for my team. Then they're also looking for, hey, now that I have clarity, how does my team really become efficient, right? How do my processes really become efficient, right? Now that they've become efficient, how do I scale, right? And then they really want a partner that can stitch all of these together and move that one thing, that one metric, which is revenue, right? And that is why we have now moved from being a HubSpot elite partner to a revenue enablement partner for our customers, by moving that one metric, which is revenue, which is growth, right. And that has brought in the name change, right. It is fundamental to not just be associated with fragmented things, but the actual meat, right? The actual thing that really matters, which is revenue. And you picked it up really well, right? They're looking for one thing, and that is what I think people should be, right? Really focused on revenue. Once you're focused on revenue, you work back on how do you build teams, build processes, build workflows, build clean up your data, clean up the other things, so that the revenue really moves. And it is sustainable revenue, right? Not just revenue. You want a sustained revenue, right? Year on year it is growing, right? It is giving you the kind of results, so that you can build teams around it. This is who we are on Metric.
It's fabulous. I mean, one of the reasons we asked you on the show was that we wanted to feature you as part of the AI showcase on Ecosystem Kickoff, but we couldn't actually fit your particular use case into 2 minutes. And I know you mentioned it a little bit before, but can we just talk about that in a little bit more detail? I believe the customer was NIIT, right?
Yes.
So can you just tell me a little bit about that agentic solution in a bit more detail for our listeners? Just break it down exactly what you did for them.
Definitely. So, see, the problem statement that they were looking to solve, right, was that they needed a scalable outbound prospecting system. They wanted hyper personalization at scale. They wanted, as I said, right, they were outreaching to Fortune 500 companies. They wanted low hallucination risk. We started with HubSpot. We built custom objects and custom properties, right? I think I spoke that about that before as well. But what we need to understand is that every company or every customer that comes to us has their own unique set of uh, you know data that they want for each customer, or for each deal, or for each company that they're outreaching, or generating revenue out of. So you need custom objects and custom properties to feed in that data. right? You have and what we did here was much more than just have data fed in there, because we actually got in data from Claude into HubSpot. Right now, that data was intent signals, right? That data was actual signals of whether that company was really looking for the services that NIIT provided them. Now, when you have just one line, one word data, or a few words data, that is still easily decipherable. Then HubSpot can actually give you insights out of that. But when that data is really a paragraph, right? How do you actually work on that data and then build a contextual, hyper personalized email out of it? What we did that was we used Breeze agents with dynamic inputs, right? So that if that company today is looking for one thing, but tomorrow we integrate it with of course we had integrated HubSpot, we've integrated LinkedIn, we had integrated Claude, we had integrated um Clay. So every time a new signal was detected, those Breeze agents used to dynamically change the data and feed it back to the custom objects, which is not an easy task. Then we had LinkedIn for enrichment and verification.
Mm-hmm.
Claude did the fact checking, it did contextual research, it did reasoning, right? It
Nice.
also generated emails, right? Because you have huge sets of data. You have a paragraph of data which you need to find out the right keywords, find out the right signals, and then build out an email out of that. Had that. We had Claude doing that, and of course we had a middleware which was an orchestration layer, right, which was connecting all of these, parsing data from one source to the other, and the final Outlook integration for actual outbound execution, right? So we did all of that autonomously. HubSpot being the data center, Claude being something that does fact checking, researching, reasoning, email, generation, and then sending it back, sending those emails through Outlook, and then learning, right? HubSpot's data learned from existing campaigns, right? Okay, this campaign worked, this email worked, this is the kind
Nice.
of response that I got, and then sending that back to Claude, right? So that kind of orchestration we had not done before, or we had not seen before, right? So it was a huge success for us, right? But that's something that we are today doing, right? We're not just building systems, we are building teams, right, within
Yeah.
HubSpot. As I said, right, this was a complete prospecting team within HubSpot.
It's
Right
it's
now,
it's fantastic. And what I'd say to you is chef's kiss for
yeah,
pulling back the mystery around that and breaking that down for me, because I think that would be much appreciated by the ecosystem and other partners who are listening to you, is just removes a little bit of the mystery around how all these things interlock. And I think
yeah,
that's a fantastic example as well about how partners are builders, right?
yeah,
It's as you said, HubSpot is the spine, but you used your creativity around the available AI tools to deliver a solution for a customer that really,
yeah.
really worked. Listen, it has been wonderful talking to you today.
Thank you.
One thing I can tell from this conversation is you are in it. You are full on in the AI evolution, and the passion that you speak of, the passion your team, the time you're investing in this, and how much you care about the outcomes for customers absolutely shines through in all of the examples that you've given me. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you for joining us on owning the outcome.
Definitely, definitely. Thank you so much, Sarah, for having me. It was a pleasure talking to you. It's always a pleasure talking about AI, about HubSpot, and with HubSpotters, right? It's just, yeah.